start, several protesters storming the stage.
You can keep the flag.
All very, very civil, wasn't it? They all know here they're on track to win next year.
The eyes of Australia are upon us.
The government is bringing a surplus, the best budget bottom line in more than a decade.
And we're doing all of this without raising taxes.
Kevin Rudd back in the warm embrace of the Labor Party, bestowed life membership.
You're feeling a bit discouraged by politics from time to time. Take heart. There is a time for healing.
President Trump has moved in defiance of his own foreign policy and defence officials by starting a complete withdrawal of troops from Syria.
At the same time, the Prime Minister visited Australian troops in the Middle East.
It's great to be here in Iraq on behalf of all Australians, just to say thank you.
News you can trust, opinions you can't ignore. This is Sky News, Australia's news channel.
At least 20 people killed after a tsunami hits beaches around Sunda Strait in Indonesia. US President Trump cancels his holiday plans amid a partial government shutdown. Meanwhile, another member of the White House steps down over the decision to withdraw US troops in Syria. And the government to subsidise a drug praised with dramatically improving the lives of MS patients will be live with the Prime Minister's announcement. In sport, will the MCG pitch be up to the task on Boxing Day? We have the latest from Melbourne.
And in weather, well, still mild temperatures across the southeast of the country. However, that will change. For a more detailed forecast, please join us over at Sky News Weather, Channel 603.
It's midday in Sydney, 9 o'clock here in Perth. This is Weekend Live. I'm Danica Di Giorgio. Welcome to the program. We're going to take you live now to Sydney, where Labor Senator Jenny McAllister is speaking.
Bring prices down. But the government are stuck in the past, insistent on a set of measures such as the divestment measure, which the consumer regulator has not recommended, and ignoring the challenge of climate change and ignoring the very great need to provide certainty into that market. And it's the consumers that will suffer because, as we've been told, until there is certainty in that market, we will not be able to bring prices down. We find out today that the NBN may now be running further years beyond its end date. Remember, Malcolm Turnbull told us that the NBN would be completed by 2016. It's scheduled for completion in 2020. It seems now that additional problems in the system could push that date out even further. And finally, we end the year with wages and wages growth still soft. And the government has no plan to deal with that. Their sole contribution over the last 5 years to wages has been to take away penalty rates. And I tell you what, people will be feeling that as we go into the Christmas season. We hear countless stories from people all over the state of New South Wales who have problems with the NBN. People are tired of the level of service, they're tired with delays in connections, and they're frustrated by the interaction between the NBN and other telecommunications providers. This isn't surprising at all. It is a mess entirely created by Malcolm Turnbull. We're very well advanced in our policy and decision making in relation to the NBN, and I can tell you there will be a very clear choice between Labor and the Liberals on the NBN when we go to the election. We've been calling for more fibre for some time. The idea that we would put in place more copper is clearly foolish. It's time for the government to bring the technology into the 21st century and stop playing games with technology that belonged, frankly, in the 19th century. Great, thanks everyone.
That was Labor Senator Jenny McAllister speaking in Sydney there, talking particularly about the National Broadband Network amid reports out today that the NBN budget itself will go over $900 million. She said that Labor has been calling for fibre for some time, and she said that it appears the Turnbull government is not going to do anything about it. We move on now to breaking news. At least 20 people have been killed and 165 people have been injured after a tsunami hit beaches around Sunda Strait in Indonesia. An official from the Indonesian National Board for Disaster Management has posted footage online showing the aftermath of the tsunami. Dozens of buildings have been damaged and cars have been overturned. There are reports the tsunami wave was caused by a volcanic eruption, and we will bring you more on this breaking news as it comes to the newsroom. US President Donald Trump has cancelled his Christmas vacation to Florida after the Senate failed to reach a deal to end the partial government shutdown. The major hurdle remains funding for the president's controversial border wall with Mexico.
President Trump, if you want to open the government, you must abandon the wall.
A stalemate on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers convened on Saturday, hoping to work out an end to the partial government shutdown.
60 votes in the Senate, majority in the House, and President Trump's signature. That's what's needed.
Roughly a quarter of the federal government shut down at midnight on Friday, forcing the Departments of Homeland Security, Justice, Housing and Urban Development, as well as other government agencies to close. For days, the debate stalled on Capitol Hill. The main point of contention, President Trump's request for $5 billion to construct a wall along the southern border of the U.S.
The only thing that's going to stop that is great border security with a wall or a slat fence or whatever you want to call it. But we need a great barrier.
But Senate Democrats disagree, shifting the blame back to the president.
So the Trump shutdown isn't over border security. It's because President Trump is demanding billions of dollars for an expensive, ineffective wall that the majority of Americans don't support.
Lawmakers hope to have a deal nailed down this weekend, but President Trump warned the shutdown could go on for days if no agreement is met. I'm Kim Hutcherson reporting.
The Special Envoy for the Global Coalition to Defeat ISIS, Brett McGurk, has resigned over US President Donald Trump's decision to withdraw troops from Syria. As Sky News reporter Deborah Haynes explains, the resignation comes days after Defence Secretary Jim Mattis.
Brett McGurk, a really key figure in the ISIS campaign, a key figure in all US-related Middle East policy, someone who's been around for years. He was the US Special Envoy to the Global Coalition Against Islamic State and was someone who was really central to driving that policy over the past 3 years that saw countries, including the United Kingdom, join together to help forces on the ground fight against Islamic State in both Iraq and Syria. 11 days ago, Brett McGurk gave a briefing where he talked about the policy going forwards, given that the large swathes of ground that had been held by ISIS have now been recaptured. And he made very clear that in his mind the policy was to keep troops on the ground, small numbers of troops on the ground, to help with their local partners as they fought to secure the peace. However, he was totally short-footed earlier this week when Trump announced actually no, he was pulling all of the 2,200 or so US largely special forces in Syria out and bringing them home, declaring that Islamic State in Syria had been defeated. Given that, it's not surprising at all that on Friday he submitted his letter of resignation expressing the difference of opinions over the Syria policy.